Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We have the almighty Sarah with me today. Hi, Sarah.
Hey, Jacalin.
Lovely to see everybody. So while we're waiting for everyone to tune in today, would love to know what makes you sign up to today's workshop, Demystify Service Design. Yeah, let's share in the chat. And maybe also share your current role as well. If you're in a transition position, it'll be really interesting to know what kind of topic would be able to would you find interesting today. Can everyone see my screen? Yeah, excellent. We're just waiting, give it everybody a few more minutes to join. But meanwhile, let's introduce ourselves and like share what makes you sign up to this workshop today. Nice. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a cough, so that might be interrupting at some point. But yeah, Nicholas welcomes, Estelle welcome. Interesting to see transition from content strategy into service design or UX. Interesting. Nicholas, I was recommended service design as a career transition. Yeah, interesting. Well, today we are all about that. So, welcome, and I would love you guys just think about what kind of question that you have while we're going through some of the Q&A with Sarah today. We might not be able to touch on every single question, but just keep an eye on in the chat, meeting chat channel, because that's where we're going to interact with everybody. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be hosting today, and Sarah's going to be the superstar that's going to answer everybody's burning questions. If you see a question popping up in the chat that you might be also interested to find out the answer, please give it a thumbs up or some sort of plus or whatever, because I'm going to be just filtering out the question in the meeting chat and then pick up questions that are mostly asked today. So that's how we're going to run today. Augustine, we've got Augustine as well. Wei, I'm a product designer, interested to learn more about service design. Excellent. Yeah, that's what we're anticipating. A lot of product designers or different sort of product expertise transitioning into service design. Kiara, I'm an AI assistant helping Kiara. Oh, there is an auto note-taking thing is happening here. Well, always interesting to see how different factors interconnect one another, and I feel service design will be a great way to map this. Excellent. Okay, so we are going to tap into it. Let's see how many people has already tuned in. 33. Okay, cool. Well, before everyone else tune in, Sarah, would you like to maybe start off with your story? I'm sure everyone's curious about Sarah's story. How did Sarah, what did you do in your life to lead you into service design as a profession, Sarah?
Yeah. So I've always been interested in design. So I always knew, like high school, that I always wanted to do something creative. And so I might give a bit of my like backstory as we go into it, and then also why I'm super in love with service design. So I did industrial design at uni. So always have loved design, really loved the first part of it, of like the research, understanding customers, coming up with new ideas, but never really enjoyed the like, let's build the product now, like let's do the detail design in like SolidWorks and stuff. And when I finished uni, I went into UX design. Actually, I did a few other jobs that were more really focused on like physical product design. Like I've designed, if you go to Barangaroo, I worked on the shells that are there. So I did a lot of like CAD work and designing like physical products at a few different companies. And then I went into UX research, and I really loved that because I love research and really understanding users. What do they do? And then after that, that's when I did my full transition into service design. And so as I went along that kind of process, I really started to hone my skills in terms of like understanding end-to-end experiences, understanding customers, and how do you run research, how do you understand, and how do you work with different stakeholders. And so how I made that move into service design was really, I just love running research. I love working with stakeholders, collaborating. I'm super curious to learn all about the business or like new topics as well. So I love to deep dive and become like an expert in some different area, so I really know intricately how it works. I get really excited about that. And I could tell you for days, like, how does treasury work? How does the collections team work? And so that's kind of where I started to fall in love with service design and become basically an expert in the area.
That's interesting, Sarah. I also wonder, did you have a different profession before you stepped into design as well? Did you have some mysterious background that we didn't know about?
I am very proud of this. So I worked at Woolworths for 10 years on the checkouts. I did basically all of the business. I absolutely loved it because I always got to work with, meet with all these different people and like talk to them about their day, find out more about them. And so I feel like I was already doing my own service design and also my own research because I have the same customers come back. I loved working during the week and having retirees come in and want to chat to me for like half an hour. It was my favorite part.
That's so lovely. That's definitely like a little trivia question for other people if they don't know you. Interesting. So getting into service design must be a journey, right? So what made you pick service design other than other professions? Did you do some sort of like comparison between product design and other type of different design and make you sort of like chose service design that resonates with you the most?
Yeah. So I guess mine probably even started when I was at uni, before I started at uni. So I initially was thinking that I wanted to be an architect, and then because I think at that time I didn't know the full scope of all the different design disciplines. And then I started to deep dive into architecture, and I was like, no, this is not where I want to go. And I always kind of knew that I didn't want to go. If anyone has worked with me and you've seen me try to do graphic design, you know that I'm not very good at it. And I just love solving problems. And then when I started to get into design and working with you as a UX researcher, I started working really closely with product designers, and I respect the discipline. It's fantastic. I wish I could do the role, but I'm just not the best at which is what I found out at uni as well, like the detailed design bit. Like I can do the detailed experience design, but I cannot tell the difference if like a design was like off. And so I think it was like realizing what am my strengths and what am I really good at that helped me to get into service design. So I'm super curious. I love to ask questions. I love to compare to other experiences and understand and deconstruct them as to what works really well. And then I also really love understanding businesses and how do we deliver that business value? And then how do we deliver value through an experience as well? And what are those opportunities for us to improve it?
And Sarah, what kind of is there any sort of like educational courses that you did leading into service design as well? Did you have to progress through different type of company to get to where you are today?
Mine was actually, I just made this straight transition actually into service design because I did a lot of it at university when I was there. And so I did exchange to India, and then also at university, I did a lot of design of experiences and interactive products as well, and designing that whole end-to-end experience. And so I had quite a good baseline understanding of how to do service design. I also am in love with learning as well. So I have also done like a bunch of reading, working with others, working with coaches and things like that. So I'm a big believer in mentoring and being able to work with others to understand what are your gaps, where do you need to grow as well.
Yeah, awesome. We actually, I think it's time to get into that big burning hot topic that everybody's here about, including myself, because I personally work with many different service designers, and it looks like service design is being defined very differently in every single different company. And so let's just demystify this for once and for all. Sarah, can you explain what the hell is service design? What exactly is it? Please.
Fantastic question. So I always go around service design is really about insights and understanding. So it's about understanding the business. It's about gathering those insights and understanding what do we need to do as an organization? Where are those gaps? How do we form those opportunities? And then it's about designing collaboratively with subject matter experts. What is our experience vision? So where do we want to get as an organization? Where are we at now? So understanding that current state, and then working with the organization to progressively work towards where we want to go. And then it's also about designing tactical and strategic solutions. So it's really about understanding what do we do now, but how do we also, how do we design like tactical things, but also how do we understand that strategic way of where we want to get to, and kind of combine those together, but making that understanding of like, when are we making those tactical choices? And when are we making those strategic ones? And so it's all about bringing together the entire business and understanding it to come up with a way to push forward towards where we want to get to as an organization and what customers are looking for from an experience. Jacalin, you're on mute.
Yes, I was on mute. Rookie mistake. I'm sure in your role you work with a lot of product designers as well, right? So I'm just curious about what that looks like. What's the difference between a service designer? What do they do day to day versus product design? I mean, product design, you probably know, you don't need to know everything what we do, but like, can you maybe describe to us what's your typical day-to-day activity as a service designer? What's the difference there?
Yeah, so in terms of my day-to-day, mine's really around collaborating with everyone. So I'm constantly chatting to everyone across the business, running workshops, and facilitating discussions is really big in terms of what I do. So if I give you a bit of an example of like a project like process that I go through, because each day kind of changes just depending on what part of the project we're in. So say if you start at the start, my big role is around understanding a problem and deconstructing like the complexities in it to go like, what is not working, and really understanding that problem, like either from the business, from a customer, to really start to understand what is that opportunity. And so to do that, I'll spend a lot of time with the business defining that project. What are we doing? Where are we getting to? And then also working with the business all customers to start to run research to understand either their experience or understand the problem that they're having. What are their needs? And so running those interviews or contextual inquiries, whatever research we decide to do. And then working with the business as well. So it might be that I sit alongside people doing their roles and kind of like ask questions and prod them. Or it might be that I'm running big workshops with the whole organization to really understand what is working, what's not working, but also understanding like what value do we want to deliver as an organization? Like what is our value proposition? And so a lot of facilitation around that. And then starting to get into that detailed design and designing that solution. So running a bunch of tests, testing with customers to figure out what's working, what's not. And then running that past also the business to go like, what resonates with us? What's working? What do we want to do? What can we do? And therefore what's desirable for customers as well, and bringing all of that together. And so a lot of that is really about that facilitation, like I said, going through a design process, and making sure that that's applied, and then also really deeply understanding the business as well, and then discovering opportunities and visualization as well. So mine role, like each week isn't the same. So that's why I thought I'd just give you a bit of a holistic view of what I do.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so interesting. We've got a really like relative question coming from Dave. Which part of the business does service design fit into your organization? Does it fit into product teams, or does it fit into which team does it fit into?
Yeah. So this is an interesting one. So even just myself at Prosper. So we sat in the strategy team that we have, and then we've worked really closely with them across the last couple of months, and then we've now kind of moved back into our original original design team. So we sit within the product team, but service design, I always like to kind of think sits across a lot of different initiatives. So we don't usually sit within, like say a pod. I always like to think that we sit holistically across to really make sure that those experiences connect together. And also making sure that we're working with a lot of different users and understanding what's happening, because if one team's making a change somewhere, then it's potentially going to affect different parts of the business and the experience that we're delivering.
Yeah, Sarah, this is interesting. Now that I'm sort of like visualizing in my mind as a pie chart for service design, right? If you were visualizing pie chart as service design as a pie chart, what percentage of it is running workshops versus research versus on the tools, right? And other things. How would you maybe like give us maybe like a pie chart visualization of the responsibilities under your role?
Yeah, so I always kind of which this might be wrong, this is just my view, but I always kind of group together like facilitation and workshops together, and even research. Like they're different areas, and they're like, some of them are like skills, but to be able to do all of those things, you need to be able to facilitate. You're kind of running workshops constantly. And it might be, that's why I don't really like using the word meetings, because it's more like we're having a session together and we're workshopping it, and I'm there to facilitate. And so that's where I kind of see like probably like 50% of my time is spent doing that joint of activities. And it's really about flexing those different skills to be curious, asking questions, understanding. And so that's like a lot of my time is spent doing that. And then the other part of my time is like synthesizing all of the stuff that I have found out, and condensing that down and making it consumable and presenting it back in a way that is really engaging and telling that story. And then the other part of my time is then spent, and this is also part of those workshops, but then spent designing the experience. So I'm crafting those artifacts, I'm making a blueprint, but then I'm playing that back to everyone to see, does this make sense? Have I made up any lies in terms of our current experience? Is there any gaps? And then starting to really understand that. And so that's where there's like such a big part about that collaboration, facilitation, and running workshops as part of my role. And then a lot of it's, that synthesis. And then the other part is really around that crafting of artifacts to then be able to kind of go back through that other circle of facilitation and workshops and collaborating with others.
Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna drill a little bit curiosity about the artifact thing that you're talking about. What exactly is the output? Like, it sounds like a lot of it is research, sounds a lot of it is discovery, sounds a lot of it is facilitation. Now, what is the output? A service, if someone wants to become a service designer, what is that artifact that you're actually producing?
Yeah. And so I guess it really depends on the project that you're working on or the part of the design process you're in. And so some of the things that I will create are either insights, opportunities, so opportunity areas. So really defining what is this opportunity for the business, what value does it deliver, and kind of adding to that as well with people from the business, like what is that business case? Like, why should we work on this opportunity? How much value will it deliver? What value does it give customers? Stakeholder maps. So understanding how the business fits together, how does everything work? Prototypes as well. So I often work with product designers on this, or even creating research artifacts as well. Will be another activity that I'll do, and that might be a prototype, or it might be like something that I'm using to test with customers. So it might be just wireframes. It might be using images to kind of communicate an idea, to really start to discuss it. And then the other kinds of things that I'm making are blueprints, journey maps, crafting jobs to be done as well, or even designing like experience principles, or even just principles overarchingly. So as part of an experience, crafting what is the principles that we're going to design towards and make sure are constantly embedded in our experience. And one of the other artifacts that I used to kind of take care of as well was a experience guide, which is like, how do you deliver this experience? What is that guide towards doing it? What are those talking points that we have? How does it work? How do you bring it to life, and how do you deliver it and make sure it's consistent and when other people are delivering this experience as well?
So it sounds like you're a lot of these artifacts are about producing and synthesizing some sort of document or presentation to make sure that everyone in the team is aligned on what we're going to be working on next, for example. So it's kind of like when you guys do a lot of discovery work, you put it in excuse me, put it in some sort of presentation format, and then you present back to the team. And that's sort of like helping the team to move their needles, while the product designer might be just taking some of these insights and then start working on like focusing on the specific area of your big piece of research.
Yeah.
Did I debunk it all right?
Yeah, you did. So say an example might be that I'm working on like how does our back of house, how does our team work internally? So say, for example, how does our support team work? How does our sales team work? I'll be mapping out that experience with a blueprint or a journey map and going like, these are all of the touch points. These are the systems that are happening. And this is how they interact at all of these like really micro interactions and touch points. And how does it connect together? And then this is how the customer's engaging with it. I'm mapping that out. And then I'm working with product designers to then map out like, what are those screens? Like what is that digital interface? And how do we need it to work? And potentially that's looking at the sales team. What screens are they using? What uplift do we need there? But then also, what are the screens that customers are engaging with? What do we need to uplift as part of that, part of the experience as well? You're on mute, Jacalin.
Again, okay, I've got quite a few questions coming in. A lot of people is definitely interested about what you guys do actually. I'm actually going to maybe bring you guys up on the spotlight so you can ask the question yourself. But for now, I'm going to move into the next section. Is the next category of question. It's about how do people get into service designer, and when we hire service designer, what kind of skills are we looking for? So Sarah, would you be able to share just share some lights on, for those who wants to become a service designer, what are the different pathways to get into this role?
Yeah. And I think I might kind of touch on like the skill set of a service designer, and that kind of gives you an idea of like the areas that you would work on developing and becoming really good at, because I think like a lot of service designers potentially they've had different lives beforehand. So they often come from like all over the place, and they realize that like they really are passionate about designing really good experiences or creating systems and services that work really well. And so the key like kind of principles and like skill sets for service designers is really around that user-centered design. And so how do you design experiences or even like human-centered design? How do you design experiences for humans and services? Co-creation. So how do you co-create experiences with others? And so how do you bring them into the way that you work and design those experiences together? And then the other part is around like being holistic. So looking end to end, how does everything connect together? How developing that systems thinking of what are the interaction points? How does it become one? And then I've kind of talked about this one quite a lot, but one of the key things is around that facilitation. So how do you facilitate relationships? How do you facilitate creativity? How do you come to an outcome? How do you get to deliver on an objective that you have? And then the other one that I've talked about is like that curiosity. And so developing that curious mindset and really understanding how things come together and connect. And so I think those are the kind of skill sets that I always talk to people about in terms of developing and being able to get into service design, is that you need to kind of you need to be able to showcase those different skills. How have you applied that? And how have you been able to put that into practice? And so then the ways to really start to get into service design is around either developing in those areas. So doing courses, doing coaching, mentoring with someone to get really good at that and develop those skills, or also working on, there are like specific service designs courses that you can do, but I think it's like doing that, but then making sure that you're working on projects that look at that holistic experience and you're delivering that and you're applying that. And so you can often do that in even like your day-to-day role, is putting your hand up to go like, we have a system or an experience or a process that's not working well, and applying those service design skills. So like mapping out a process and going like, can we improve that, and starting to use those in your day-to-day role.
Yeah, you know what, once when you were talking about all these facilitation skills, in reality, I actually feel like product designer also need these kind of skills. Like you can never get into a senior product designer unless you know how to facilitate, unless you know how to design workshops, unless you have all of those like stakeholder management skills as well. So I feel like this is a shared area. And this is the kind of skills you can only practice when you're actually in the job. Of course, there's tons of online information that everyone can seek on YouTube. You can just simply type into workshop stuff, workshop techniques or facilitation technique. There are tons of information online. But my suggestion is like anyone who has the opportunity to facilitate anything, please like go jump on it and use every single meeting as your practice exercise, right? Every time we tune into a meeting, 15 minutes meeting, we want to get into this goal. There are 5 people in there. Instantly, your math is in your mind going, I'm going to spend 5 minutes talking about my point. And then everybody's sort of like having their 3 minutes input and somebody at the end writing out an outcome. So it's kind of like we're constantly in every single meeting. If you're actively using that facilitation mindset, you are already practicing those skills. So that's something that everyone can start doing. I think it's a slightly challenging. My experience is a lot of people's asking me, how do I display facilitation skill? I think actually, if you would be able to write every single time you facilitate, it's like a case study writing. What's the beginning? What's the mathy problem that you guys are trying to solve? What kind of activity did you design it to ensure that all of the voices are heard, ensure that, time is well managed, ensure that outcome is achieved? Then if you can demonstrate that in a case in every single setting, then you can then demonstrate your facilitation skills. Okay.
Yeah, because it's even.
Yes, there anything to add to that?
Yeah, I might just add on to that, because it's even like, say, one-on-one, how do you facilitate a discussion or a conversation as well and get that to a certain outcome? How do you make sure that we resolve this point that we're talking about by the end of a one-on-one meeting or a conversation? And how do you then facilitate others within that conversation to get to an outcome and to resolve an issue, or even just to understand a topic, and really developing those facilitation skills? And a kind of like story that I might share, like kind of on that point of like developing those skills on the job. Like it doesn't even need to be in service design or like product design or another design discipline. Someone that I was mentoring was working at a university as a career counselor, and he really wants to get into service design. And so my recommendation was like to work on those projects, to start to deliver those, to start mapping out, like creating blueprints, figuring out what are the opportunities to improve even in his own role and even across the university. So how do you do that, and developing those skill sets as you're working as well? Because everyone's been to a meeting that had no outcome or had no actions, or didn't come to a resolution. And so I always love to be able to be that person to help us make sure that we have valuable meetings or have valuable time together. And so developing those skills constantly, and even just putting your hand up to kind of help facilitate or put together like a session or help to run a project is developing those service design skills.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, I'm going to throw the mic to some of our audiences, and I'm going to pick up names. So if your name is being called out, please unmute yourself and ask this question, because I'm sure you can, put it much better way than I do. Okay, Vishad, Tomer, would you like to unmute yourself and share us with your questions?
Hello, hi Jacalin, hi Sarah. Thank you for the talk. Yeah, in the chat I asked, you talked a lot about service design being part of the product team, and then also working with other sort of teams. So I just wanted to get a bigger picture in the sense that, so essentially what you're saying is that you work with product team as well as teams like customer experience, branding team, you work on sales collateral, so that all of that experience sort of comes together and as a company or as a team, you can actually sort of connect all those experiences and sort of bring them together when whether you're talking to customers or potential clients or whoever. Is that sort of the bigger sort of idea, that this is what this is sort of part of service design, or is there more to it?
Yeah, so I might touch on some of the points that you kind of brought out. So it might not just be a product experience. So I've worked on designing and working with a team to put together like a customer value proposition for a product. And so going like, what is that experience or service that we're delivering? How does that come to life? And really starting to craft that. And then some of the points that you had around like sales collateral. So I'll say map an end-to-end experience and go, this is what it looks like based on all of those different roles. But then everyone else is like a subject matter expert. And so they'll kind of go off and work on those pieces that are required. So say if we're designing out a new product or a new experience, the people in the marketing team will work on that collateral that's needed or the branding that's required as part of that experience. And so they'll put together any promotions or any tools that are needed to be able to market that experience, but they're aware of the experience that we're crafting, and then we're bringing in their expertise to go like, this is our value proposition of the product that we're designing or the experience, and then they'll be able to use that in their marketing to be able to bring that to life and understanding how that works. Or I'll bring in and work with, say, for example, like our support team to go like, how do they deliver support? What does that look like? What is their role? And how do we bring that to life? But then also going, if we're going to change this experience, how does their role adjust? So if they're not going to be doing this manual activities, what value are they delivering, and how does that change over time as we release more? And so I'll work with teams and managers on that to go, if we're changing this, what education do we need? How does this role change? How does this role description come to life differently? And so often I'm working with them or empowering other people to go and take that problem and really start to define it.
Okay, thank you, Sarah.
I think Sarah feels like actually one of the best way to see service design is that it's not just customer facing, it's almost operation as well. We look at how to fix the operational problems in order to enhance a better delivery flow for the entire company, right? So that's why you work at sales team and their process, you work at branding or marketing team for their process as well. So you're connecting the dots between different platforms.
Yeah, so I guess an example of that is like if you look at so say for Prosper, we're lending for small businesses, and so for us to say, for example, do an origination experience, for us to give customers a loan, I need to work with our treasury team to go like, how are we financing the loan? Where do we get the monies from? Work with our finance team to go, how do we give that money to the customer? Like, what is the processes involved? What are we changing as part of that experience? And then marketing, how does this appear on the website? How are customers actually getting into this application? And then the sales team and the support team, how are they working with the customer? And on that call, like, what is that conversation that they're having? What tools are the sales agents using? And then what screens are the customers interacting with? And then as part of all of that, what systems do we have in place? What tools do we have? Do we have certain scripts that we have as part of the experience? Or do we need certain training? How does all of that connect together and in those different moments in time? And then what's working and what's not working as part of that?
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Okay, thanks, Sarah, and thanks for the question, Visha. Next one, I would love to throw to Ron. Oh my God, the classic vintage old school Ron. Me and Ron, for anyone who doesn't know, me and Ron used to be teaching at General Assembly, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. We go all the way back, Ron. It's so good to see you. Anyway, you've got 2 or 3 really awesome questions in there. Do you want to take a pick and just share us your voice that we've missed for so long?
Thank you, Jacalin, for running this, and thank you, Sarah, for talking and sharing your insights. I'll pick one that has been thumbs up twice, so maybe the most popular. So some of us here and others are from product design, and I'm sure from other places. My question was, when you may be hiring or looking for new service designers, or maybe when you were going for roles yourself, what are some of the things that you see as highlights during the application process, or maybe red flags that people could stay away from that you might go, oh, they're a product designer. I can't believe they said this. That's not service design vibe or skill set. Like, where are some of the things to be aware of?
Are you saying in terms of like, say, if a product designer is applying for a service design role, or is it more when I'm applying for a role and how am I?
Probably more the former, as a let's say as a product designer thinking, oh, I want to make this transition, but I need to be wary that I need to steer away from these things and highlight more of. I'm sure it's going to be facilitation is going to be key overlap.
Yeah. So yeah, facilitation. Answer your question. But the other part is really around that looking holistically at the experience. So not just the digital experience, but how does all of it connect together? So it's not just about have we designed the screens, or have we designed this part of the like say backend system and that part, but then how does it all come to life? So say, for example, what are all of the different touch points as part of the experience, and do they understand the importance of how they should work together? And then as part of that, have they understood like what is that future state that we want to get to? And then designed and backtracked to go on like, this is where we want to get to as an organization. This is our strategy as an organization. This is the value that we deliver. And this is the key part of the experience. And so therefore we've got this vision, and then we need to deliver on that, because we don't have all the monies in the world, sadly. But how do we backtrack that and go, what are the key components of that experience, and how do we start delivering that value and start solving the pain points that we have as an organization, and start delivering that to customers and solving some of these issues that we have in the experience to really progress us towards an ideal state, and breaking that down so we're progressively delivering value, and also delivering value for the customer, for the organization, and then even like for how we work as an organization. So there's systems and tools that we're using, or the roles that we have as part of the organization. And so really thinking about all of those different components. So say like the people, the processes, and then also the systems and like tools that are supporting that, and then also the experience that we're delivering. And so how does all of that come together, and like the touch points? And so not just looking at one component, but holistically as to how it works.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sarah.
That's okay.
Love it.
Okay.
Sarah, I don't know if you have the list on hand. I've kind of put you on the spot, but I am personally curious. I've got a selfish question, but this is afterwards. I love you to, if you can share maybe like a couple of like service design portfolios out there that you think they're decent, like showcases a good service designer's portfolio. Would you be able to share with us, perhaps?
Oh gosh, I feel like I should say my own, but I don't like doing folios.
Do it. Yeah, I actually haven't seen yours, but anyway, we can do this after. We can send it out as a message, and then highlight the points.
Let's make a folio. Then we could share it.
Cool. Okay. So sorry, go.
Oh no, so I was gonna say, yeah, I can bring together some of those. I think so I recently put together my own website. Look at me doing stuffs. But I do have like it doesn't fully go into NDAs. But one of the projects that I have worked on, which is Goals 360, and so it starts to go through a bit of an idea of what that project was. What are the problems that we're solving? What is that experience? How is service design involved in that? So that's a project that that kind of starts to talk about how service design works as part of that project.
Awesome. Well, maybe we'll share a link to your own website just before we leave today's session. There is a really good question from HM Shorts. HM, are you around? Do you want to unmute and share us with your question? Very popular question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hey, yes.
Yes. Hi, Sarah. Thank you for sharing your insights. I'm questioning, you're telling us about your position as a service design at your company, and you were working closer with strategy team. And I'm just curious how much you're explaining to us, how would you differentiate service design with strategy design?
Is that like strategic design?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's kind of like a bit blurred. Like even myself, like I'm like, how are people differentiating between this? And I think how organizations have started to differentiate between that is kind of splitting up the and I might be getting this wrong, but splitting between say the more delivery focused part of service design and going more towards that, like what is our value proposition for this product, going more towards that understanding part of the design process, and how do we understand where we're going as an organization, how do we understand customers' needs and problems, and then transitioning that over to more a service design role as to it being more about that delivery part and like understanding the experience. I might be kind of wrong in that, but because I kind of join both of those roles together, but I can kind of see at organizations how they're wanting to get designers to focus on different areas. And so strategic design really starts to look at our strategy, where are we going as an organization, how is design part of that, and then what is the more strategic research that we need to do. So say, for example, I've done research really deep diving into what is the meaning of like a capital product, what are customers looking for as part of that. And so I would see that it's like more a strategic design role, or like activities that you're doing, but I would still, like, I'm a service designer, so I still see that as part of service design, whereas like say the more service designy activities, I guess you could say, is where I'm blueprinting, where I'm looking at those processes and starting to map that out and understand what that looks like. So kind of going more towards like that value proposition, that strategic research as to what we're doing, and then going more towards that delivery part. So I think that's how people are differentiating in between it. But even myself, when I read those role descriptions, I'm like, but that's just service design. So I think it is a bit blurred as to that. And even some organizations just call service design strategic design. So I don't think there's a full clear definition of that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Every single company, well, at least we're here, both me and Sarah is based in Sydney, Australia at the moment. At least I can say based in Australia, service design in every single company is it's really depending on what the company needs, because every single company operates on a different model, and every company has a different sort of problem. So you're constantly, it's very broad, right? Like, so you might be throwing into a product problem. You might be doing some sort of discovery for a product, or you might be throwing into an organizational, operational problem to solve. So it's actually quite interesting.
Yeah, like some of the problems that I've looked at is like how do we adjust like how roles sit in an organization, or craft in a new role even to be able to deliver an experience, and understanding like what does that role look like, because we've identified a gap or a way to improve that experience as well. And so then designing that out and seeing how that role then comes to life as well, and how we evolve that over time.
Yeah. Okay. I think we have room for one last question. Mustafa, I love that question you've asked. Would you like to unmute yourself and share your question, please?
Yes. Hi. Thank you for sharing your insights. It's amazing. And actually, it's kind of a general question, but what kind of challenges do you face as a service designer during projects? Maybe you might want to share your like last experience. What was the last challenging that you faced, and how did you deal with this situation? Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for the question. So I think it really depends on the project as to the problems that I face. So I might give a bit of an overview, and then I might talk through, like you said, like a recent one. So sometimes one of my big challenges is just getting the time with people, and like being able to book in a workshop with the subject matter experts that I need, because like everyone's calendar is busy, and I'm like, I need you to come to a 2-hour workshop with me soon. Please clear your diaries. And so trying to even just like coordinate diaries is even just like one of my challenges as well. So sometimes I like book a workshop or like a session that I know that I need like 2 weeks in advance, so that I know that everyone's diary is clear, or like a week in advance, so that I can get that time with people. And then even some of the other challenges that I have is say communicating the value of what I'm proposing that we design as part of the experience, or even being able to get that buy-in into, or even getting the amount of getting certain parts of the experience designed and delivered. So it's like you might design the experience, but now that like it's time to get that buy-in for actual delivery as part of it. And so one of the probably more recent challenges that I've had is like us defining our scope as part of a project, and so making sure that certain really critical components are built into the experience in the first phase of the experience, to really communicate that value as to why we need to deliver this, and why we should, say, resolve some of these manual activities that the team are currently doing, and why we should put a lot of our build effort and like the cost that it has for us to take that amount of sprints to build this, and be able to influence and communicate the reasoning as to why we should be spending that time and doing this as part of design and delivery and working with other stakeholders.
Nice. All right. Sounds like there's a lot of cat herding activity in your role as well, Sarah. So well done. I think it's a huge challenge to gather everybody together. It's never an easy thing. Okay, we're at time. We're 1 minute over, but we would love, Sarah, can you please share how would people get, what's the best way to follow your journey or get insights from you?
Yeah. The best way to follow my journey is probably on LinkedIn. I post quite a lot. I do post my own videos, of me. So you will see my face there constantly. But any events that I have coming up, any talks that I'm doing, any workshops that I'm running, or even just like my ponderings or my thinkings, is where I'll post a lot of my stuff. So actually I should share it in the chats. Let's see if I can use the Googles to find myself. Where am I? And then the other way you can kind of see what I'm up to and what I'm doing is also my website, which is my name, sarahheimeier.com.au.
Excellent. So yeah, I mean, if anyone's curious about what a service designer's portfolio looks like, go to Sarah's website or follow her on LinkedIn. And otherwise, guys, I'm all going to be running a lot of these kind of Q&A with every single month with different people on different topics as well. So make sure you follow us and tune in to these kind of fun sessions and get all of your questions answered. And if I didn't answer your question, don't worry, I've screenshot everybody's question. I'm going to send it to Sarah and she can, probably over time share your insights on LinkedIn based on the question that's been answered. But thank you so much for everyone tuning in. It's so good to have such a proactive crowd, and unmute yourself and show your faces, and have a fabulous night or morning or day wherever you are. And thank you, Sarah, for joining us, giving us all the insights today.
Thank you so much,
Thank
everyone.
you. Have a lovely day. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.